Okay, this is 2000 Tundra fuel pump removal, and it has been very hard. I got some lines under here. The lines I had to disconnect were the fill and the vacuum vent hose. Very hard to get off. Slip those off. I have a jack I'm going to try to use to lower this. I've disconnected the lines, but they are still dripping because the tank is about 3/4 full. I've disconnected the line at the fuel filter. It goes over here to the tank, and I had some lines right here that were really hard to get to. I don't think you can see them, but I marked 2 of them. There's 2 hoses here. I had to put a plug in one. That's the one that's dripping over there. And that's the one going to the fuel pump, from the fuel pump to the fuel filter. And it's dripping like nobody's business. So I'm going to try to get this lowered now that I have these lines disconnected. Alright, I decided to disconnect the battery because I was going to have to disconnect the wiring harness that I forgot about on the fuel. Alright, I'm using my camera to see if I can see anything up here, and I don't see jack squat. I don't see any electrical, so I'm not sure what gets electricity to this thing, but I'll eventually find it here. Okay, that's where the electrical is. The vent is up here. I still can't see any of this. My jack is still way too high to clear this thing, so I'm probably going to try to drop it on the ground. And I still got some hoses to contend with here, and I can pull that out. Looking from the other side, this would be a lot easier with 2 people, but nobody wants to help me, so I'm doing it by myself. And anyway, I'm going to try to drop this all the way onto the ground. Okay, the next thing I've decided to try to do is chock the tires, disconnect the drive shaft, so I could actually get up here and maybe change this without dropping the tank all the way, but there's no way to get my body, my head, hands up in there to change that. So I found another problem. This U-shaft right there, the bushing in there looks all jacked up, so I may change that out too. This truck has 190,000 miles on it, and it had no fuel going to the fuel filter. So that was the first thing I tried to change out, was the fuel filter, and there was no fuel going to it. It did start and run for about 5 seconds. Then it stalled. It ran again for 2 seconds and then would not restart. I'm pretty sure it's the fuel pump, but I don't know. But the truck, again, has 190,000 miles on it, so it probably needs to be changed. Hopefully that's the problem. Okay, I've disconnected that yoke up there, and that is still stuck. All the bolts are loose. Everything seems to be a 14 millimeter, so I'm going to try to pry that loose with a screwdriver. Unfortunately, I'm trying to keep my tools close, but it seems like every tool I need is not underneath the truck. So again, this is really a good 2-person project. So if you need something, you don't have to crawl in and out of the truck, slide in and out of the ground. It'd be much quicker. Okay, I had to hammer on that pretty hard right there to get this loose. I hated to do that because you could damage that joint there, but that came loose. I tried to squeeze my body up in there. Now I got plenty of room to get up in here. My whole body can fit up in here. I got the electrical loose. I'm going to clean that a little bit, take out them screws, and I think I got enough room, about 12 inches, to pull that pump out of there, but we'll see. Okay, took the 8 millimeter bolts out. Had to disconnect, pull those lines out of those bracings, and there we have it. We have this sweet pump out on the ground, so we can change the pump and then get it reinstalled. I was thinking about putting this pump on there and turning it on, but the electrical is way up there, so that's not going to work. Anyhow, that screen's not too bad for having 190,000 miles on it. I put some nasty gas in it a bunch of times. So I'm going to change this out, and we'll see how hard that is. The electrical on the top of this was very hard to get out. There's a little clip that has to be pressed in on this side right there. So that was pretty hard, and then jiggle that up. Pretty hard to do. I think I might have broke the little plastic piece that connects that there, but hopefully it'll stay when I reattach it. Alright, here's the next problem. This little bushing's kind of rotten. So I chinched out on the kit. This kit was like 20 bucks for this pump and the filter. You have to put this little thing on the end that holds it right there. You have to push that on there to hold that on there. And the other problem is the electrical. These electrical is different. And that's it right there. It will not fit into this. So you will have to have the ability to wire that. And you're going to have to cut and splice that in there and wire it. So I'm going to do that next. And I'm just going to reuse this bushing, even though I'm not happy about it. It's kind of old and rotten. It's 13 years old, sitting in gas. And it could fall apart. And then that pump would just be dingle-dangling around in there. But hopefully it'll be alright. Alright, here's another thing to show you. This is an ohm meter. I have spliced these together using a wrench, pliers, and some connectors. And I've hooked the blue to the red and the black to the black. And basically, what you need to do before you reinstall that is test for continuity. You want to make sure that these wires, the connection is good. And when you hear that beep on your continuity setting, which is that little thing right there on mine is continuity, then you know they are working. So I've tested both of them. Both of them make the sound. So I know those connections are good and they should work when I hook it back together. Alright, one last shot of everything taken apart. It's taken 2 hours and a snack break to get this far. Got the new electrical, new pump, got the sending unit all there. The drive shaft's down and the tank's lowered and the things are disconnected and the fill tubes are over there disconnected. So this is completely taken apart as far as you could possibly take it apart. It's taken about 2 hours and a snack break. So I'm going to start putting everything back together and then we'll try it. Okay, I do not recommend removing those fuel lines from them brackets. I think I've spent 20 minutes trying to get those lines back in the right place in the brackets. So now I'm going to go ahead and raise this up higher, connect these lines, and we'll give it a try. Okay, I've already started this once already, and it is running. It's running rough. Hopefully that'll, as soon as the computer picks up and reprograms, I had the battery disconnected. It's got fuel pressure on the fuel pump, so it seems like it's running pretty good. And it took a few cranks for it to kick up, but it started pretty fast and it idled really high, like 2,000 RPM. So there you go, fuel pump installed. I still got to hook up the drive shaft and the fuel fill hoses and vent, and then I'm done.